What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 198 of Two Amazon Sellers and a Microphone, brought to you by Solozo. And today, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about 3PLs, prep, all the stuff that when you scale as a brand, obviously you can't be running it out of your house anymore. You need other capabilities. We're going to go through all of that today with Taylor Smits, the head of supply chain at My FBA Prep. What's up, Taylor? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm 2 episodes and a microphone short of 200, but I'll take it.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, we got to plan something good for our 200th. We haven't thought that far ahead yet, but we'll do that.
I'll be watching.
Fun journey, that's for sure. We've a lot of people we've talked to, but this is a topic we don't cover a lot. So this is gonna be a lot of fun having you on here talking.
It's probably one of the most important ones, really.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, things get more complicated as you grow,
especially now.
Logistics, supply chain, 3PL, all that is a big part of it. So we'll do a deep dive. We'll go into all of that. But before we do, we want to get a little background on you, Taylor. How you can take as much time as you want, but how did you end up getting in this space? How did you end up? Well, you told us beforehand you're in Mexico right now, so we'd love to hear a little bit about that as well. But just how you got involved and how My FBA Prep started and what they're doing to help people out right now. You got the floor.
Yeah, I'm in Mexico right now. I spend a lot of time here, but I'm jazzed because I'm coming off of our quarterly offsite. The 3 co-founders, myself and 2 very close friends, colleagues. It's more like family. We're around each other that much, but we just did our offsite down in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. So very excited about the next quarter. I'll tell you my background quickly. I was a corporate guy in New York City. I spent about 11 years as a recruiter, and I was never fully satisfied, mainly because I felt like nobody valued my contributions. Nobody really felt like what I was doing was important. That was my internalization of what was going on around me. And I just knew I had to do something on my own. All the while, I was selling concert tickets and sporting event tickets on the side, which you could say was my first entry into e-commerce, but got hooked 2016, did an Alibaba Facebook ads dropshipping store, if you know that model. Started in private label right behind that, and then got into wholesale. And it was about that time where I got a call from a friend from New York who said, "Hey, I got this guy. We've partnered together on an account. You know, we're pretty friendly. He wants to start something in e-commerce, but the only problem is we don't really have too much e-commerce experience." That individual didn't. The third guy did. And here we are over 4 years later, and we've started My FBA Prep. So my Amazon background, which was good but not great. What I mean is, 6 but hadn't broken 7 figures at the time. I knew a little bit but not a lot. And we tried a number of different ideas that we were fleshing out in the Amazon space, around the Amazon space, serving sellers, etc. And then we landed on this model, which I'll get into. I'll give you just like an overview in a second, but I think it was interesting. I was thinking about this when we were together, my partners and I, last time, and I want to share it with you. So for Dustin and Chris, if you guys think about your first product that was successful on Amazon, if you're comfortable sharing, not what the product was, but just what was the estimated profit. Maybe it's the third model, but what was the estimated profit per unit on one of your early successful units? If you could just share it with me, and I'll go from there.
Mine was referring like a 35%. This was back in the day, 2014, so margins were a little bit higher then, but it was around that 30 to 35.
And dollar value, what are we talking?
Like per unit, what I make?
Yeah,
it was probably around $10.
Okay. And Dustin, is that comparable to you?
My first product that became really successful was a lower priced product. So I still had about a 40% margin I was bringing in, but it was around like $4 or $5.
Okay,
So
perfect.
a little lower,
I love it.
but a little higher margin. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So let's call it $4 to $10. So you have three guys who want to start a business in e-commerce, and we're poking around and we're trying. And if we were smarter, we might have ended up in a business like private label where we'd be getting $4 to $10 per unit. So what are we getting per unit? Well, right out of the gate, to prep a unit is typically less than $1, right? So we're talking like dimes and nickels. Let's put it like that. So I just think it's interesting that from a blue ocean strategy standpoint, a lot of people think our model is interesting, and I'll explain some of that in a bit. But when you rewind to the beginning where the future had not yet been written, we were kind of stupid to get involved in this business where we're making dimes and nickels per units, as opposed to the business you guys chose to be in, making $4 to $10. And I'm sure you have products that are more and less now throughout your SKU mix. But that was interesting for me to reflect on, because here we are doing extremely well, and yet that is our model. You know, we never make more than that on any individual item that we prep. And so the answer there is scale, and I'll talk a lot about scale for how we got to where we are. A quick overview of my FBA Prep. We're a network of over 50 warehouses globally, and we specialize in Amazon Prep, but we also do direct-to-consumer fulfillment. We do subscription boxes. We do bundles. We do kits. And more, what's popular is we're doing several of those things per the client. And we really specialize in matching large e-commerce companies with warehouses. We'll put together a proposal and say, here's how we would do your prep or your logistics or your, FBA, FBM plus Shopify fulfillment if you were to work with us. And I think to separate us from the 200 or 300 prep centers that are out there, many of them which are good, I use this Airbnb analogy, and I think it works for people inside or outside of Amazon. It goes like this. If Airbnb is a marketplace where renters / travelers are matched with hosts / owners, and you can search and transact on that marketplace, what my FBA Prep is a marketplace where we take large e-commerce companies and match them with warehouses and prep centers that perform the services they need. So the needs for a 25,000 unit a month wholesale seller are different from the needs from an aggregator. We'll get into that later in the conversation. But that's what we do. We're an asset-light company, and we're matchmaking these warehouses with these clients. And then all throughout, we're holding their hand. We have what I call a world-class white glove account management team. So the client services we do is extremely heavy. We have a very important technology side of our business that basically will allow you to see, we call it a control tower view, where if you're looking at the control tower, you can see where your inventory is in California, in the Midwest, in the Northeast, as an example. Any number of warehouses that you use in our network, you can see the inventory in one place. And then, of course, we handle transacting and billing there. And most recently, with our largest clients, we've gotten into a lot of integration. So they say, well, in order to even apply to work with us as your client, you have to show us that you can do an API integration into NetSuite, as an example, or you have to show us that you have a history doing EDI for our retail orders. And and so that model is the model we follow, and we often internally are talking about how would Airbnb do it if they had this problem in front of them, and we try and use that story, which is a greater, bigger, and older one than ours. We use that to guide us in our business decisions.
What's some of the things that you're seeing? This has kind of been a logistic nightmare these last year and this year for sellers. Compare the years. So 2020, 2021, there was probably a big shift. You probably had a lot of stuff happening between 20 and 21. What's happening now? What are we looking at?
Yeah. So I think early on in the pandemic, we know there were ASIN restrictions, and that's since kind of shifted more towards total quantity units in, say, standard size in Amazon. And it feels like from an inventory standpoint, we're in a much better place now than we were earlier in the pandemic. So that's good. However, the supply chain is still a mess from the pre-pandemic era. I recently read a marketplace pulse report that was showing average containers, if pre-pandemic they're $1,500 to $2,000, they peaked at $16,500. They're still around like $14,000, and that just blows my mind. So a lot of increased costs in the supply chain. Mainly, it's pain for sellers, right? It's painful because you're having to carry your inventory longer, you're having to order earlier, and the costs are higher to get it in. We do not foresee that going away anytime soon, the increased costs for supply chain. Luckily, the Amazon limitations or bottlenecks have lifted a little bit. So if you can bring it in, let's say you're bringing it in from overseas, if you can get it here, at least you can send it into Amazon. But to your point, Chris, another big thing we've seen in the past few years have been our sellers turning on FBM listings for their inventory at Amazon, which is partially if they go out of stock, but it's also sort of a fail safe because things happen when you try and work with Amazon. You might find your inventory sitting to be checked in at the Amazon docks for 2 to 3 weeks, when in a normal period you may have gotten that checked in 5-7 days. So the FBM is sort of a backup, which will keep your ranking where it's at, and it won't adversely affect your BSR. But those are kind of right now things that a lot of our clients are seeing and doing. And unfortunately, we think the sort of fouled up nature of supply chain is going to continue for the foreseeable future.
One of the things I'm noticing, I was mentioning to Chris earlier, is when I'm sending an inventory, it's getting checked in much quicker, but it seems like the FC transfers are taking longer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, and that's the worst, because your listing's live, but it's got that,
Right.
It's like, will ship in 2 to 4 weeks. It's like,
and that hurts your conversion, right? Yeah.
That's when you shift to FBM, hopefully, just so that you can, if you're using a prep center or a 3PL of some sort that can fulfill FBM orders, at least that makes that offer more attractive than waiting for 2.5 weeks. I don't know if that's changing or what's causing that, why they're receiving it so fast, but it's taking longer. I don't know. That's just something I'm noticing, at least in my account.
Yeah, we're noticing the same thing for FC transfers. We're also noticing in California, especially, I think we have 9 warehouses in California. We're getting missed pickups left and right. I mean, we're talking 5-10 pallets, LTL, partnered carrier. They don't show up. And when you finally get the drivers, you kind of like want to hold them and say, okay, make sure you take it, put it all in your truck. They're saying that they're just too full. They get to a point where their truck is full. They obviously have more stops, but they can't make it. They head to the fulfillment center and they go wait in line. So, even the tips that I'll give, such as, turn on your FBM listings, doesn't solve all of the problems for any seller. I mean, far from it, right? FBM sounds good and it'll protect your ranking, but what if the cost to ship that item is prohibitive for your margin? You'll probably do that for a while, but it's not a strategy that long-term you want to employ just to keep your listing and your ranking where it's at.
100%. Yeah, I agree entirely. One question that, I hear a lot, you hear people ask is, when's a good time for someone to shift to a prep center or a 3PL? At what point in their business does it make sense for them to do that?
Yeah. I'll give you a qualitative way and a quantitative way. The qualitative way is when your spouse, partner, or anyone, when it starts to affect your relationship because you have too much stuff in the garage, the kitchen, etc. That's typically should be a light bulb moment. Another way of looking at it, and I think one of the educators, the wholesale educators, Dan Meters, did a really good blog post about 3-4 years ago, and his point in that blog post was, what business are you in? My guess is in private label, what a good seller does well is sourcing products and then finding a way to promote those products. I'm simplifying many activities, but it's probably one of those two. So if you're looking at something like a commodity such as prep, you should ask yourself, do I really want to do this? And one of the things that's been surprising to me, probably in the past 2.5 years, more than earlier, is the number of clients we have who also run their own prep center. It's crazy. They come to us and they say, look, I'm maxed out at 40,000 units a month through my warehouse. My sales have increased. I'm doing 60 or 80,000 units now. Can you help me? And so we will partner with them and say, all right, tell us what your processes look like in your warehouse. We'll build the team or we'll duplicate it in our warehouses. But the point being, you know, my seller journey is this way too. You start, you do it on your own, then you do it bigger and you say, hey, I think I can run a warehouse. I can prep the stuff quickly. Then you end up hiring someone. Okay, great. And you duplicate. Pretty soon, you're in the business of running a warehouse, not in the business of private label research, new product research, not in the business of ranking your products or trying to create a demand for your SKUs. And I think that's when you've kind of shifted away from the core of your business. I also find it really interesting the number of Amazon sellers I meet who are struggling with this, Dustin, saying, is now the time for me? And I said, well, when did you decide you weren't going to manufacture your products yourself? You were going to outsource that, right? Mm-hmm. Very few of us look to do the first step, a very important step, the manufacturing piece. Those reasons to outsource are intuitive. Yet when it comes to a prep center, I think the knee-jerk reaction is, I'm going to do it myself. Many people can do it well, but at some point, and that's the reason I brought up our clients who have their own prep center, you start to question that decision and reel it back, and you say, wait a minute, I don't want to be doing this anymore. I'd rather have a partner who can do it for me.
Yeah. It can also eliminate that like single point of failure deal. I mean, if you're running your own warehouse and half your guys quit, you got a problem.
Yeah. Or what if you want to take a vacation? I mean, like there's a lot of pretty simple things that could really cause your inventory to come to a screeching halt from a prep process. Not the least of which is you want a few days off. So I often will compare this to it's not a very polite example, but in business there's this idea that if you're thinking it's probably time to let someone go, you've probably waited too late. If you're thinking it's about time to outsource your prep, you've probably waited too long, right? Mm-hmm. So just some ideas to put in the minds of your audience as far as prep goes. If you can realign yourself around what's core to your business, that's long-term going to be a good step for you.
Yeah. I think one way I talk to a lot of people about it is if you yourself are a huge core part of the operations of your business, then that it's more difficult to sell. We were talking about aggregators, but if there's systems in place where you can remove yourself and everything can flow the same way, that's more attractive to a buyer than if what they're buying is how well you are polybagging products in your house all day long. There's a lot to that.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, just I think every private label seller or even wholesale seller should think like, where am I right now? And then if you say a year from now, whether it's units, whether it's sales in terms of dollars, where do I want to be? I find it hard to believe that you're going to want to be contributing to this piece of the business, working in the business, not on the business as much as you are today. And I think that's your point, which is like, so what I'm saying is first, if you have 10 products now, if you have 10 SKUs and you want to get to 20, you're probably gonna have to pull out. What does that look like? What are you going to keep doing and what are you going to give away? And then you're in that process, you're actually setting yourself to be more attractive as a potential acquisition for another company because you are not doing the thing. You are operating kind of over the business, working on the business. That's super important. Aggregators want to buy a business. They don't want to buy a job. No one wants to take your job off your plate and do it themselves. They want to take your business and its revenue off your plate and take it for themselves.
What look, I would like to take a step back just for anyone who's listening, because I mean it might be good to hear. What for a lot of people, they don't know all the ins and outs of what it takes to prep a product to get it ready for FBA. What's involved in prep? I mean, what are the services that you're providing? Is it labeling, bagging, splitting, bundling? I mean, all those things. What does that look like?
Yeah. So the resource that we often use to train people in our warehouse is it's about a 40-page PDF, and you can download it inside of Seller Central, and it's their prep requirements. You'll see what does it mean, what do you have to do to prep liquids. You know, you'll learn about a 3-foot drop test. How do you prep bundles, which is, you know, you need to cover the individual UPCs and then have a singular FNSKU on the outside of that bundle with a sold as set, do not separate sticker. So all of these things, Amazon actually gives you, here's how you need to prep this type of unit, you know, 2-lid rule for liquids, for example. And the end result of prep, which I point out often, is a commodity. Whether we prep it at our warehouses, whether Amazon preps it, whether your manufacturer in China preps it, or you prep it in your kitchen or your garage, it should be similar. It should have the same basic things. One scannable barcode. If it's a small parcel, it can't be over 50 pounds, can't be over 25 inches. These rules apply to everyone. So we're not trying to do anything differently. We're trying to do it more efficiently, and we're trying to have better tracking than you might have on your own. Is that where you're going with what goes into the prep?
Yeah, just, you know, so we'll jump into this in a second, because I've got a personal question for you.
I was wondering when you were going to say something.
Yeah. But before I jump into that, what kind of clients are you dealing with? Are they mainly brands, private label, mainly wholesalers? Are there resellers, arbitrage people? There's a lot of ways you can sell on Amazon. Who is your ideal client set?
And to add to that, because I got one on top of it, where are you seeing the growth at? Like, is it private label sellers coming to you, as a wholesalers, onlines, retail? Like, what you can add to that too?
Yeah. Okay. So for us, we service wholesalers, we service private label, and we service aggregators a lot now, as well as big brands. In fact, we started in January with a brand that's owned by Nestle, and that has been just really phenomenal to see people land one truckload of one SKU 6 times a week. I mean, it's unbelievable. We have a press release coming that's stuck in legal right now, but that's gonna hit, and we're gonna announce that to the world. But basically, we service medium and large sellers, anyone doing 20,000 units or more per month. We do have some exceptions to that, but that's typically a client that we get excited about. We definitely have different buckets, which goes back to the proposal or the matching process we play internally. So, for example, if we are doing a private label, I'm gonna without naming names, use one of our clients. We have a client who basically runs a nice Amazon agency where he reaches out to brands in the beauty space, explains to them his background in beauty distribution and his ability to rank products and bring brands to the Amazon platform and sell them. And, you know, off the top of my head, I think he does 40 to 60,000 units per month. So when we look at his prep, we say, we need people in the warehouse who understand all of the Amazon specific rules to the unit, because the individual units, or the unit of measurement for him, is an individual unit. And it often needs to be shrink wrapped with an FNSKU over it, right? And so that's a different warehouse, and that's a different set of knowledge than the facilities that we use for our aggregator clients, which are typically large. I can give you the kind of the 3 things we're looking at for the aggregators. We're looking at enough warehouse space to get the job done. We typically will charge them by thousands of units per month in storage that they'll pay for, whether they use 100% of them or not. And then rather than it being individual level prep for these aggregators, we're typically doing carton forwarding because they've already got the FN SKUs on their products, but what they need is a home this side of Asia to land the products and then kind of drip feed into Amazon. And pro tip is they're actually taking, if any given aggregator owns 20 or 50 brands, they're taking inventory from different brands and putting it on one full truckload, getting it into Amazon, which is a cost savings, but it's a bit of a pro tip. And 2 years ago, I didn't know how to do that. Today we do that often. And then lastly, for the aggregators, we really are providing a technology integration, which is kind of mandatory for them. As you can imagine, when you get to their level, they have just any sort of controls that a large company would have, which need to be there. They can't go with a prep center that won't be able to tie their inventory to a batch number or a PO and then pull it back into their ERP. So, Chris, tell me your question one more time. I'm forgetting.
Yeah, where are you seeing growth at? Is it on the wholesale side, like just individual sellers? So where do you see growth?
We're seeing a lot of growth with people who are ratcheting up. So private label sellers who are looking to sell or going through a fast growth phase. We're seeing growth in large individual brands, like apparel companies, electronics companies, brands that you would see when you walk into a Best Buy or a Costco. And then our biggest sort of segment of growth, which kind of goes along with everything you would hear at, say, a Prosper conference, are the aggregators. What's happening is, if step one is a private label seller is manufacturing, step one as an aggregator is finding the money. Okay, step two after manufacturing is like getting it into Amazon, and you're going to start doing the ranking. Well, for the aggregators, step two is like, oh, shoot, we have to build a team that can actually operate now. And when you read the Wall Street Journal headlines, you just assume, oh, Thrasio, $3.6 billion. Man, they must have just a team full of people on every floor filling up a building, ready to get their hands on the operations side. Not necessarily the case. They, like many of us in business, are building it as they go along. And so where we come into play for them is it's a consolidation act. If you are acquiring one brand per month or 12 a year, or heck, a lot of them are doing 2 brands a month, or some of them are saying 1 brand every other day, which boggles my mind. You don't want to have that many warehouses, okay? You don't want to acquire 24 warehouses a year that you have to have relationships with. So they will come to my FBA prep and say, talk to me about why you guys think you're able to do this. And we say, well, in the United States, we have over 40 warehouses that we could put your inventory in. Here's what we think makes sense for you. And we'll give them the square footage. In fact, on Monday of this week, we had one of these large companies out in California doing their second site walkthrough. The first one was in Georgia. So Georgia, then they went out to California and said, okay, we like these 2 buildings. We think we're going to move forward. But we're a consolidation play. They want to have one relationship where they can drive. Typically, they start out slow. They'll ramp up with 5 or 10 brands. And then as they select their warehouse partners that they're happy with, or they will grow with us, then they'll add more and more brands. But the last thing they want is to have to manage a ton of relationships just because they've acquired a ton of brands.
Genius.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's sounds like, from what I'm gathering from everything that you're saying, is it makes sense for you as well, because you with the way the Airbnb model that you mentioned allows you to scale with them a little bit seamlessly, and not have too much risk on one certain warehouse.
That's exactly right. We don't promise to be 5 times better than any individual warehouse, right? What we promise to be is not run out of warehouses that can effectively do the work, and then the ability to view all of that in one place in our platform called Preptopia. That's really what they need from us. And to bring it full circle from my thought at the beginning, we didn't go after a $4 to $10 per unit margin as if we were creating a brand ourselves. But the way you can, with nickels and dimes, the way you can actually do quite well is when you get to the volume of a lot of these larger sellers, it becomes very interesting when you start to say, hey, not only are these huge clients doing massive volumes, but they're on a fast track for growth themselves. And 20% growth for an aggregator is way, way, way more attractive than 20% growth for, let's say, an individual wholesale seller for us. So
yeah, nickels and dimes start adding up when you're talking about millions of units.
yeah. I mentioned our offsite. I did some fact checking, and last month we did over 1.8 million units. We have over 6 million square feet if you add our warehouses up. And we have, I think we're at warehouse 59 is the most recent one we brought in, which is our 4th warehouse in the UK. So it's now getting a lot to manage, but that's what we signed up for.
So are you guys facilitating international expansion for a lot of these brands? Obviously, you've got these warehouses in different marketplaces.
Yeah.
Is that inside your system? Does that make it easier for them to get their inventory into new marketplaces?
So today, yes. But the truth is, we didn't have plans to expand internationally. That's come completely at the request of our largest clients who have said, hey, we are looking to open up Canada, UK, Germany. What do you have? And we say, well, this is going back about a year now. Well, we don't have anything right now. Give us a little bit. And they say, okay, our timeline is 8 weeks. Can you do it sooner? And so myself or someone on my team will fly out, try and visit some warehouses, do some training, make sure they understand. There's a vetting process, obviously, for all of our partners that we choose. I would say more so than Airbnb in this case. But we're on the floor, we're doing test shipments, and we're trying to answer this question: does this warehouse know Amazon inside and out? The reason that's not a given is a lot of warehouses do other work as well. They do, retailer fulfillment, like this B2R work, sending goods to whatever, Walmart or Costco or Sephora. And then many others are more traditional 3PLs, but haven't yet been trained or haven't yet crossed over to Amazon. And that's really the gap that we noticed several years ago is, hey, you have these excellent, large, kind of old multinational 3PLs that exist and do really, really well, but they don't know Amazon. And when we're talking to them on the phone, it's like they're saying, yeah, we do stuff for Amazon. And we get there on the floor and it's like, no, you do Amazon 1P. We need 3P, or, you're just doing fulfillment, but your clients are sending in the orders for you. Like, we need our warehouse staff to be able to create the order inside our seller's account and ship it into Amazon perfectly. That's what we need. We can't have people who kind of, sort of, maybe know Amazon. It's like, we need experts. So that's what we're doing in the growth process when we bring on new warehouses. And all of the overseas stuff has been, we actually had the client first, which has allowed us to go move a little bit quicker, just in the sense it wasn't like, hey, I think we'll need to be in Canada or in Germany. It's like, we need to solve this like now. And then, we devote the resources to it.
I mean, and I have a horror story on that note too, with like using a 3PL that didn't have enough knowledge of the Amazon space. But that was always my biggest fear. I'm like, you can't ship stuff in like unlabeled or labels on the wrong boxes, or this is like, I've got a lot of money in this inventory here. We can't screw this up. I think it's a fear for everybody. And it's easy. You put the wrong F and SKU labels on something. That's what happened to me. I used a 3PL partner a few years ago that just wasn't equipped, and it was a lot of headaches. There was a lot of shipments that didn't get checked in right, and a lot of calls with Amazon trying to figure out, which SKUs were actually sent to them. It was a mess. So having that comfort level that you're doing that vetting is important for sure.
Yeah. I've heard many stories that's similar to that from our clients. And, we often do site visits. I mentioned this, like if our clients want to know, fly on out, we'll be there. We'll walk through with you. We'll show you, and we want to make sure our clients feel like they are in good hands, and we're not afraid to have them come in and walk through and meet the team. Our ratio of account managers to clients right now is between 1-to-1 and 1-to-5 at the high side. We're really bringing on account managers to service 1 or 2 accounts. Now, when you are trying to capture what I would call enterprise level business, that justifies itself. But the real benefit for us in doing that is we say to someone from start to finish, put bookends on it. This is your account. You own and are responsible for everything. Go above and beyond and as far as you need to service them. But what they're not having are competing interests of how do you service 5 clients, in early June getting ready for Prime Day. It's really tough to give 5 people at the same time, lightning fast responses and working on all of it. So we've said, let's try and really invest in our account management team so that our clients say, one of the things we love about My FBA Prep is we can pick up the phone and get our account manager on the phone. We can fly out and our account manager will be at the warehouse waiting for us to do a walkthrough, et cetera, et cetera. So, we're trying to prevent those horror stories that you're alluding to.
No kidding. All right, let's walk through this a little bit. Just the different setups, because you talked about, you've got all this prep for a lot of your clients that you're doing, but then you also, some of your clients, they just need basically carton forwarding, like you talked about.
Yep.
That's more of like Chris and myself on the private label side. Most of our products are labeled, packaged, prepped, case packed. They're all ready to go straight from the manufacturer. They just need someplace to sit.
Yeah.
And then be shipped, like you said, drip. Maybe a small part of that can be like D2C orders off of our Shopify site, that kind of thing. That easy setup on something like that for a client, that's just is that something that you guys do a lot of, is just carton forwarding for people? And on that note, how do the warehouse storage fees, obviously it's got to be way cheaper than Amazon's store. If you get long-term storage fees, that's the worst in Amazon, but just how does that look and how does that break down sort of?
It's a pretty easy, onboarding process. I'm just going to give the example you gave of your private label business. What we would do is we'd get you a login to Preptopia and you would send your POs into Preptopia. When the inventory lands, our warehouse would begin checking it in by the SKU. So let's say you're shipping in 10 different SKUs and 100 units of each. So you will start to see that being, 100 units of SKU 1 got checked in. 100 units of SKU 2. Wait a minute, 98 units of SKU 3. 2 units were damaged. Here's the photos, etc. So we use another analogy. We call it the Domino's pizza tracker analogy. We like simplicity, right? So inbound to the warehouse, and then you get receiving, check-in, prepping for FBA, waiting for pickup, sent to FBA. Those are your stages as if it's the Domino's pizza tracker. You'll be able to see that by the warehouse, meaning if you're working with multiple locations, you can choose which POs you're looking at, or you can choose which facilities you're looking at that might have multiple POs going on at once, and we send that in. As far as let's say in that case, I just received prep and send in 100% of your inventory. You're saying, wait a minute, I'm going to send you a container, but I can only send in 15% right now. Great. So we'll charge you storage fees by the pallet is typically what we do. It's easier than the cubic foot because it is a lot less back and forth argument. We can send you a picture, send you a video of the pallets, and you'll believe us that we're getting the number right. We'll also build in pallet positions there, so you can kind of know, like let's say A1 to A26 is 26 pallets, or A to Z, if they're all in row 1, is 26 pallets as well. So we would charge you based on pallet storage per month, and then a per carton forwarding fee, which has to do with, is it standard, is it oversized, and we don't really take into account how many units you have in there, but typically the more units you have, the higher the fee, but the lower per unit cost it is. And that has to do with weight and dimensions. The more units you have in there, typically the weight and dimensions go up, but the per unit cost goes down. So for example, if you're sending in, 2 glass vases in one carton, you might pay $2.50. If you're sending in 12 red widgets that can fit in one box, it might be $3 or $3.50, but per unit, you're going to pay less.
Makes total sense. So let's go to a different model now. Let's say I am a wholesaler.
Yep.
So now potentially I've got a lot more SKUs, but it's potentially similar in the fact that you're just getting shipments in. These are our products. But then there's a lot more needs that I might have. Obviously, everything needs to be labeled since I'm wholesaling. So they've got the F&S SKU's got to go on it. They could be 2-packs, 3-packs. There might have to be some bundling, get that SKU right. How do we coordinate all of those things that we need to get done?
Yeah. So for starters, the process is mostly the same in terms of uploading the PO, and then our warehouse will check it in against what's landed. There's a column that's UOM, unit of measurement. So you will need to let us know if that item is a 2-pack, for example, or if it's a bundle or a kit, and then you would just tell us this is what the bundle and kit is. Most of the time, if it's the first time we're touching that inventory, we're going to slow down and we're going to send you a photo and say, here's what it looks like when we put this multi-pack together, or when, or like a 2-pack is pretty simple, a 3-pack is pretty simple. But if it's widget 1, 2, and widget 3 make one sellable unit, we'll slow down, send a picture of that, make sure it's okay, get the approval from you, then send it in. We'd rather be right than fast in the beginning. We can go faster as we move on. So that's how it would work. And then one of the things we think a lot about is simplicity in invoices for the clients, right? There's without disparaging anyone in the 3PL world, it's often very difficult to say, well, what would it cost me if I sent in, 5,000 units to you? Like, what would that cost me? What we've tried to do is simplify that and have as few line items as possible. So in the case of a wholesale seller, if they're sending in a full truckload, there'll be a container unloading fee. There'll be an individual unit standard prep fee, which includes check-in and the labeling, whatever the Amazon standards require. And then you would have a pallet storage fee at the end of the month. But our invoices are intentionally simple, where you're looking at like 2, 3, 5 line items. We don't want how many labels do we print? And then you have to because that becomes impossible for the seller to back into their actual cost with us. And we realize that it's super important for every seller or every company or every brand to be able to say, what is our cost when we use my FBA prep? So simplicity is really key.
All right. So now I've got one more model for you. This is a personal question because
here we go.
I know I might scale this out of my range here, and this may not be something that you guys do or handle. It's okay. Just getting your feedback on it. Recently, it's not really wholesale, but I've been doing some online arbitrage. So buying products low at discount places, whatever, and then doing it. At that point, it becomes like wholesale. I'm listing them on the listings, and then they sell. Okay, so I'm kind of actually excited about. A lot of people stay away from this, but it's working. And so I'm doing this from my house. So stuff just coming and coming and coming. And this is where I really learned about prep, because I really, like I said before, with private label, I don't really have to do much prep. It's already prepped. It comes in a box already, retail ready. Well, with this, I'm learning, because every time I list a new product, there's a whole different thing Amazon's telling me. This needs to be bubble wrapped. This needs to be in a plastic bag with suffocation warnings on it. This needs to, I'm learning all kinds of stuff that I didn't do before. I'm putting it in a box, and they say, oh, this box is the wrong dimensions for, FBA acceptance. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, at some point this is going to scale for me, and this is when I'd like to turn it over to a prep center. My question is if I've got constantly changing SKUs, because I'm trying to vet if it's going to work all right. I might send in 30 on the first try, but if it sells, then I'm going to buy 1,000 of them. And it's just every day there's new SKUs, new options, new things. And I don't know how they should be prepped. Do you work with anybody like that, where there is just a constantly changing count of SKUs, constantly changing count of quantities, and all different types of prep across the board?
Yeah. So the short answer is not anymore. We've worked with tons of
tricky.
We've worked with tons of OA sellers over the past several years. And in fact, we've even worked with just straight up retail arbitrage sellers in our early days, where they would drive a van up and say, "Hey, can I deliver on this day?" And we'd say, "Sure, come to the warehouse and we'll unload you and we'll get it done." Here's the main reason why. It's not that you can't get to volume that's attractive to us. In OA, you can. It's just really difficult, this process of not having like BOLs coming in or any sort of delivery confirmation. UPS and FedEx are not, what you see when you enter the 1,000 digit tracking number for FedEx or UPS. That's not really widely used in the transportation world because it's unreliable. If UPS puts that box on a front door of a warehouse, that doesn't mean it's been received appropriately against the right account. So there's no handoff that makes sense for us, like a BOL or a packing slip that we can receive against. And it just becomes difficult to say, oh, I got, it's like, hey, did you get my Best Buy order, my Target order? It's like, yeah, we got an order from Target. Well, Target sent 20 units today. We started prepping it. And then you said, wait a minute, I saw the shipment. It was only 20 units. I ordered 100. It's like, all we got is 20. Oh, wait, a week later, the other 80 are going to show up. So it's more the inability to reach efficiency, which is difficult for us. But what I will tell you is we can talk offline, and I might have some names for you, and you can look into it. But my FBA prep is sort of going more towards like medium and large e-commerce businesses, and it's hard to put online arbitrage in a bucket that makes sense for us.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. That's why I'm looking for a partnership of some sort, because I'm doing all that stuff right now, trying to figure out who all have I ordered from, how many units have come in, and it's ever changing. I like the model though, in terms of what in a lot of ways it's easier than private label. And
people argue. I just want to make a point here. People argue what's the best model on Amazon all the time. Let me just tell you from the warehouse's standpoint, I have seen people crush it, absolutely crush it in every which way you can think of, and many you can't. I've seen guys buy full truckloads, multiple truckloads at once of Amazon returns, and then export them out of the country. I won't say where, because to protect them, but it's insane. I mean, the business they're doing. I've seen online arbitrage. I've seen people run 6 figures profit. So, I mean, one gentleman I'm thinking of, I believe he was retired or sort of working, and he had a VA doing all of his OA ordering using, tactical arbitrage. And when I showed up, he was working in one of our Florida warehouses, and I saw the volume on the floor. It's one thing to see it in a spreadsheet and you have no idea, if the person's doing well or not. When you see it on the floor, you go, oh my goodness, somebody's making a small fortune here. And he told me he's not even touching it. So I have seen people get deep in a niche in Amazon and absolutely make a boatload of money doing just about everything. So, I think the contest of whose model is better, I don't really like that conversation, because they all work,
They do all work. There's a lot of successful people in every model. It's out there. It's just finding what works for you. All right. We're running up against the clock a little bit here, but before we go, there's a lot of people listening that you've piqued their interest. they meet that criteria. They're small, medium, large size brand. Aggregators listen in, they're looking to get that partnership. How can people reach out, connect with you, start the process, start the conversation?
Sure. myfbaprep.com is our website. If you say myfbaprep.com/blog, you can read some of our articles, and you can always send an email to sales@myfbaprep.com, and someone will respond to you very quickly.
All right, everybody. Now you know what to do. Go reach out to them, myfbaprep.com. Taylor, thanks so much, man. This has been fun. Learned a lot.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it, and I'll be listening when you guys hit 200. So thank you so much.
All right, yeah. Hopefully by Friday or so. No, tomorrow. Maybe
tomorrow.
Yeah,
tomorrow's the day.
Nice.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. If you like content like this, you want to keep hearing good content, cool people like Taylor share their story, give you a bunch of tips, make sure you subscribe to our podcast. We're on every platform where you can listen to podcasts. So go to your favorite and subscribe there. You can also follow our live content. All these episodes are live streamed. They're on Solozo's LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook pages. So make sure you go there and subscribe also. Additionally, if you're selling on Amazon, you're growing, you're looking to outsource a lot of different parts of your business, not just logistics, 3PL, but also advertising. Solozo can help you with your Amazon advertising. We can fully automate and optimize your PPC ads so you can focus on your core competency in your business and keep growing. You can go to solozo.com right now and book a demo. You'll talk with either Chris or myself, and we'll walk you through the whole platform and how we can help get that massive workload off of your shoulders. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in.